Hello, thanks for joining us today. I'm Scott Cook. I'm the Communications Director here at the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. Today, we're going to be talking about child identity theft, and it's an issue that we know it can cause a lot of damage, and part of that is because it can be kind of difficult to discover, and it can take a good while to discover. It's not really something most people are actively looking to see if there are things on a child's credit report, because you just kind of think that they wouldn't have anything, and they shouldn't really have anything unless somebody else has gotten that information and started to use it. And we know a lot of times it can go on for several years before it's discovered and before anything is done about it. So it's kind of what we want to focus on today, some kind of different ways that you can look at that. You can get the reports, things you can do to challenge if you're finding things on a child's identity that have been stolen. We'll kind of walk you through that and give you some tools to protect your child's identity as well. So now we'll kind of get into the meat of our presentation today and child identity theft. So we want to just kind of start talking about kind of what is child identity theft. And it's just simply when somebody's using their personal information and using it to get services, benefits, maybe even commit fraud. And they're using things like social security numbers, name, address, date of birth, those types of things. And a lot of times it can be used for a variety of purposes. A lot of it's kind of the way that any other adult would be able to use it. But in this case, somebody's taking that child's information and they're maybe using it to apply for government benefits, health care coverage perhaps. They might open up bank or credit cards in that child's name. They can even apply for a loan. They're going to maybe sign up for a utility service, phone service, something like that, or even use it when they're applying for a place to rent or a place to live. So really, they're doing all the things that an adult would do. They're using that child's information to do those things, and they're doing it in that child's name and their social security number, and they're using their date of birth, those types of things, again, to be able to use that. And there's probably a lot of fraudulent intentions with this kind of stuff. So if they're opening up those bank accounts or those credit card accounts, they're not paying off those loans and things like that with it. So really going to kind of talk about how this happens and what you can do about it and ways to prevent it throughout this presentation. So how does it happen? A lot of cases, it's us. We accidentally give that information away to people. If it's clicking on a link online, or if it's just talking to somebody on the phone and you think there's somebody else and you're giving that information away. A lot of times these things happen because we give that information away. So that's kind of what we're going to try to talk about today, and just kind of the ways that we can prevent from giving that information away, things that we can do to help protect ourselves or protect our children in this scenario with this presentation. And a lot of times it may happen with a security breach. So if a business or medical company or somebody has all these different types of information on a child, and that information is included in a breach, that information is then out there probably on the dark web somewhere. Those social security numbers, date of birth, things like that can then be used to create some kind of fraudulent account. And lost, stolen wallets. We encourage people, if you don't have to carry around, especially like social security cards that may have your child's number on there, something like that, any of that information that you don't have to have with you, don't keep it in your wallet, because the way these things work is it's always that one time or that stretch where you forgot to take those cards out of your wallet or your purse. That's when you lose it, or when it's stolen, something like that. And it seems to be the way that these things always happen, right? So, we encourage you, if you don't have to be carrying that information around, leave it at home, leave it somewhere secure, and not carry those things around on you all the time as you're going out in your day-to-day life. And unfortunately, sometimes these things might happen with, theft by family or friends. Sometimes it's, a case where there's maybe a child with a name that's similar to another family member, and then that family member, uses their social security number or, something like that to be able to create these new accounts. So really, it's kind of unfortunate, but just kind of keep in mind, family and friends are, one of these ways that this information gets out there and can be used, unfortunately. So we'll kind of look at some of the common warning signs now of, when child identity theft may be occurring. One of the most common ways is communication from the IRS. And it may be an IRS notice saying a child's failed to pay taxes, or failed to pay taxes on income that they supposedly have earned, which of course, depending on the age of the child, they probably haven't earned any income. So those IRS notices about that would be a big warning sign. You may even do your own taxes and then get a notice from the IRS saying that Social Security number and that information's already been used on another return. So that would be kind of a big warning sign there. You may even get collection or past due notices on bills, especially like credit cards or loans, things like that. So if you're getting those collection notices, that's definitely a warning sign. You may even just be getting some of those pre-approved credit offers in the mail. That would be one thing. And again, rejected for government benefits, student loans. We know a lot of times in these cases, that's some of the ways that information is being used when it's stolen. So if there's a government service that you and your family are applying for, and then they say it's being denied because of something with that child's information, that would be kind of one of those signs there. And of course, when they're a little bit older and applying for student loans, it can kind of surface that way that there's been, bad credit established under that child's name there. So one thing you'll kind of want to do is take a look at that child's credit report, and it's a little bit different than the way you would go about checking for an adult or your own credit report. Similar in some ways, but you've got to take a little extra steps to check for a child's credit report, and a lot of that's just because generally speaking that child shouldn't have one, so the process is a little bit different. So you're going to have to contact each of the 3 major credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, and then you're going to have to ask for a manual search of the child's file. And then you're going to be required to provide additional documents, and that's to prove that you're actually that child's parent or their guardian. That's going to be things like a driver's license or a government issued ID card. You're going to want to send copies of that. You're not going to want to send your actual driver's license or anything like that. So you're going to want to make copies of these things. So you'll need also proof of address. Might be things like a utility bill, credit card bill, insurance statement, something like that. That would be kind of your proof of address. You would also need a copy of the child's birth certificate, copy of the child's social security card. And if you're not a parent, you might have to kind of take additional steps, provide additional kind of copies of documents that prove that you are the legal guardian. So what we have here, in this next slide here, are the direct links to some of these different ways that you'll go about requesting those credit reports from the major credit reporting agencies. So I just kind of wanted to show you guys that and kind of show you what it's going to look like as you go through them. So again, if you downloaded the slides, you'll have these links in the presentation. You can just click through these, but this is kind of what the Experian one looks like, and hopefully you're seeing that now here on the screen, but it's going to kind of walk you through that process of requesting that minor's credit report. And again, you're going to have to enter information in there, and social security number and some of those things like that are on this. I know a lot of times we tell people don't enter this information online. This is kind of one of those rare situations where you're going to actually have to give away some of that information as you're entering it online. So make sure you've got a secure connection. Wouldn't recommend doing this on public Wi-Fi or anything like that, just because you want to make sure that your information is being protected. And again, you're going to have to enter information about the minor. And again, it kind of walks you through this process of what you're going to have to send to them, and you're going to have to mail these forms. They've got the address there, and again, it's got your list of things like proof of address, copy of the child's birth certificate, and social security card. So just kind of know that you're going to have to provide that. And I'm going to click the TransUnion one now, just to kind of give you a look at what that is. And again, the form's a little bit different for each credit reporting agency. They all kind of handle it a little bit differently. So as you're requesting these, just kind of know that the forms will look a little bit different depending on which site you use. And if you go through, they'll kind of walk you through this one. This is the TransUnion one, but again, you'll just enter that information, and you will have to put your child's social security number in there again. And the last one, we'll click on the Equifax one here, just kind of give you a look at that. Theirs again is a little bit different. They don't have that online form on this. They're just going to want you to mail some of that stuff. So make sure you're kind of doing those copies. Again, birth certificate, social security card or document. You'll need your driver's license. You're going to have to provide those documents to them as well. So again, it's a little bit more lengthy than what you would do for your own credit report, but you'll need to provide that information in order to get them to run that credit report. So once you get that credit report, you're going to want to look through it. Hopefully there's nothing on there, but you're going to want to make sure that there aren't like loans, credit card offers, things like that that are on there, bank accounts that have been created in that child's name. And if you start to find signs of that, you're going to need to contact each of the company that's listed on there. So if you see multiple companies where, you know, credit cards or loans have been taken out, you're going to need to contact each one of those companies. And you're going to want to ask them for written confirmation that your child is not responsible for those accounts. And again, after you do that, you're also going to need to contact each of the 3 major credit bureaus, and you're going to want them to remove any of those fraudulent accounts that are on the child's credit report. You'll also want to place a fraud alert on the credit report. And we'll also kind of talk to you about things you might want to consider, like the credit freeze. That would be a good way to kind of stop any other damage from being created too. And then you'll want to file identity theft reports. You can file one with our agency, and you'll also need to file one with the Federal Trade Commission. So that will be steps that we'll kind of walk you through some of that here. But again, you know, you'll want to place that fraud alert. You'll need to contact the credit bureaus and tell them what happened, and you'll need to reach out again to each company that's listed on those credit reports and let them know that it was a minor and that that information has been stolen and it's not authorized, and you're going to want written confirmation that they're not going to hold your child responsible for those accounts. Now with the child fraud alert, we'll kind of walk you through that. You're just going to need to contact one of the major credit reporting bureaus, and then they kind of contact the others and let them know what's going on and that that fraud alert's been placed. It's free to do this. You're going to want to put that in place, let them know that it's a minor involved, and then they're going to provide you additional documents and kind of documents that outline your child's rights as far as this identity theft has happened. So they're going to kind of provide that additional information to you when you contact them. So it's probably best to give them a call, let them know about that, and they'll kind of walk you through that process. We say mark your calendar because that fraud alert is initially put in for 90 days. You can extend it after that if it's necessary, but you'll want to kind of mark your calendar, make sure that you follow up 90 days later if you need to. You might want to consider a protected consumer freeze. The protected consumer freeze basically is anybody that's kind of the protected consumer is anybody that's under the age of 16. Might also be an incapacitated adult if that situation applies, but you're basically putting that freeze in place for somebody else. That's why it's kind of worded a little differently. Again, it's free. With this case, you're going to have to contact all 3 of the major credit reporting agencies. So you'll have to contact all 3 of them and let them know that you want to put this in place. And it's going to prevent creditors from getting your child's credit report. And so that's going to kind of prevent other accounts from being opened up, right? So that will be a step that will help you out with that. And the credit reporting agencies, once you've kind of put this in place, they have 15 days after receiving your notice that you want to put it in there. So again, 15 days after you contact them, that protected consumer freeze will be in place, and hopefully add those additional measures to prevent other people from opening accounts in that child's name. And we'll kind of walk you through this again too. The slides have these links. Just kind of give you a quick look at what those look like. This is the Equifax one. So you'll need to fill out that minor freeze request form. And again, they're going to want copies of these documents, Social Security, birth certificates, things like that. So just know, make plenty of copies when you're doing that, that you'll need to kind of send these out for these various forms that you're going to need to send. We'll click the Experian one real quick, kind of give you a look at what that looks like. It looks kind of similar to what we showed a little bit ago. We'll go down to that freeze part, and we'll kind of walk you through that. Again, you will have to provide some kind of personal sensitive information like Social Security number on these forms. And they'll kind of walk you through what you need to do and those addresses that you need to send those copies to as well. And we got one last one, TransUnion. It will look a little bit different. They're going to kind of walk you through this, and again, they want you to mail this information to them. So that form's a little bit different, where there's not that online option. But again, with all these, you've got to mail something to them. So again, it's those Social Security numbers, birth certificate copies, things like that. One of the next steps you might need to take is a minor status declaration. Basically, this uniform minor status declaration. It's a voluntary declaration that you're going to fill out, and it's basically just a document that tells you what's happened, what's going on with that. It's kind of that kind of legal standing of everything you're saying is true and what's kind of happened with the situation. I'm going to give you a little click on that as well, but you'll be able to use this form to kind of dispute what's happening. You'll want to send that to any of these creditors, things like that, once these identity theft problems start to happen. Sorry, I'm having a little issue with my computer that it's moved something odd on me here. So I'm trying to get that out of my way. Sorry about that. But again, this is kind of what that document looks like. We'll be able to kind of walk you through that. Again, it's just kind of that voluntary information that you're providing about what's happened, and you're basically signing that everything you've said is true and factual. And that's something you'll fill out with the Federal Trade Commission. So that link is provided in these slides as well. And you may need to file a police report depending on what's going on. We tell people, especially if it's a child medical related identity theft situation or tax related, something like that. So whenever there's kind of these identity theft things that are occurring and there's these financial ties to it, you're going to want to go file a police report with your local agency. A lot of times you just tell them, you know, you need this informational report filed so that you'll be able to use it whenever you're challenging any of these accounts that show up. You'll want to bring a copy of your identity theft affidavit as part of the Federal Trade Commission report. So when you go to the Federal Trade Commission site and file that identity theft report that it's occurred, part of that is the identity theft affidavit. Again, it's just basically saying everything's true, everything that you've provided is what's happened. So you're going to want to provide that as well, or a copy of that with your police report. You'll get a copy of that police report too, and you just want to kind of hold on to that in case some of these things start showing up and you need to start challenging it. You need that kind of additional proof that what you say happened. So that police report can kind of be that additional documentation for you to protect yourself, or in this case, protect your child's information. And we always get asked about Social Security cards. If, you know, once identity theft happens, if you're able to get a new one, especially with children, there are some cases where they will issue a new Social Security number. A lot of times it's kind of tied to if they're being harassed, abused, or in danger. That's kind of some of those situations where Social Security Administration will take a look at that and determine if a new number is needed or not. You also need to be able to prove that that Social Security number has been stolen and has been used illegally. And you also have to prove child's age, citizenship, lawful immigration status, and identity. So you'll need to kind of walk through that process with Social Security Administration, see if all of those criteria that they have are being met depending on the situation. So now I'll kind of talk about some different ways that you can protect your child's identity. So hopefully none of these things that we've talked about, we know it's kind of a long, frustrating process a lot of times to challenge identity theft. So some of these things are kind of our tips to be able to kind of help protect you, and hopefully you won't have to go through any of these processes that we kind of talked about. So we always say ask questions before giving anyone your child's Social Security number. And those are just kind of those, why do you need it? You know, you can always ask, how will you protect it? Especially if it's, you know, various companies that may say they need that information. So you'll want to ask them what they're doing to protect it, what they're, you know, how long they'll keep those records, how they're going to dispose of it, that type of stuff. You know, you can always ask them too if they can use something else in replace of that social security number, or even if they can just use those last 4 digits. So anything that you can do to kind of step back and provide, not have to provide that full social security number is going to be a little bit better thing that you can do to protect yourself. I know there are some agencies that absolutely need those full social security numbers, so that's not always an option, but you kind of want to have that conversation anytime you're handing those numbers over and see kind of what it is they're going to do with it, why they need it, and how they're going to protect it. And if you're not comfortable with the answers, don't provide it, and find another service possibly, depending on what it is. Excuse me. And again, we'll kind of talk a little bit about prevention. In this case, we're saying prevention is protection, right? So you'll want to do things to kind of keep your child's information safe. So maybe that's storing documents in a safe location. Again, don't share those social security numbers. Shred those documents that may have that you don't need anymore. So if you're getting rid of all the stuff, don't just toss it in the trash. You'll want to use a shredder that's, doing those multiple cuts and making these things as small as they can, so you can't just find the strip that has, the full social security number on there. If you're doing information online where you're entering in these types of things, make sure you're using strong, unique passwords on all your account. Again, longer is always better with this type of stuff. You can make a variety of different phrases, things. They say random is actually kind of the best way. So if you're making it long and random letters, numbers, symbols, that's kind of the best way to do your passwords and keep them protected. And don't use the same ones over and over and over. And of course, be alert to phishing scams. A lot of times, again, we're falling victim to these things. We're giving that information away over. A lot of times it's somebody pretending to be a government service, or they might be pretending to be a business where you need to enter some of this information over when you're getting phone calls, text messages, emails, especially things like that. So just kind of be careful about these scams and kind of where you're giving that information over. And again, you also want to talk to your child about these types of things. So again, computer security is a big one. So you want to talk to them about passwords, antivirus software, making sure that it's running and it's up to date. That might be kind of things you want to have those conversations with your kids, depending on what types of devices they're using, things like that. If they're on social media, you want to have those conversations about what they're sharing. If it's photos, types of information they're sharing, especially like birth dates, especially like, don't post anything with your social security number, any of those types of things. Just make sure you're having those conversations with your children and talking to them about what they shouldn't share, even if it's, social media or even just sharing in public and classrooms, things like that. Just make sure they kind of understand why that information is important to protect. And also kind of let them know about scams and, what not to do, how to protect themselves from falling victim. I know a lot of times social media, especially, or even website ads. I know a lot of my friends' kids have, clicked on those ads that say you're going to get something free, or if you fill out information on a survey, you're going to get money or something like that. So just kind of have those conversations with kids and make sure that they know that a lot of those things are phishing scams and as their attempts to get that protected information and do something bad with it. So just kind of having those conversations and kind of walking them through why these things are important. It's a good step to take in protecting yourself and their information from identity theft. And before a child turns 16, you'll want to run that credit report again. And we say 16 because that's just kind of a good number to have before they start to get a job, before they maybe are considering getting a car, things like that. So 16 is kind of a good mile marker to use for that. Usually when they're 18, they start to build that credit report. So they're doing those things like jobs, applying for various loans, things like that, possibly for college. So you want to run these credit reports before that becomes, something that they're looking to do. And you want to do it in time where if there are issues on it, that you have time to kind of react and take steps to get those items off of the credit reports. And that's kind of why we say 16. And again, you'll want to lift the credit freeze at that point, just so if they're, looking for a job, starting to apply for loans for school or for cars, things like that, you'll need to have that credit freeze lifted in order for them to be able to do that. So again, that process is free, and you'll just need to contact the credit bureaus and they'll be able to lift that for you. And we've got a little bit of additional resources for you. These are documents that are attached with the presentation slides today. So if you've downloaded all of those, you have those, but it's just kind of a little bit of information to kind of help you. This is one of our documents on child identity theft, what you need to know, and it'll kind of walk you through a lot of the things that we've taught today. The warning signs of identity theft, different things you can do to protect your child's information, again, how to teach your children about ways that they can protect their own information. And then with the protected consumer freeze, we have a little document here that has some of the addresses, things like that, and it's going to kind of outline what you need to send in order to put these in place. So that might be a good little cheat sheet for you as well, that you can just kind of walk through that, know what you have to be able to provide a copy of in order to put those freezes in place for your child. We thank you for joining us today. We hope you'll join us for another Wednesday webinar, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.